Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast. Today we're going to talk about adjectives and adverbs. So today obviously is a grammar episode. We will talk about adjectives and adverbs, the differences between these two, and when we can properly use them in our English sentences. So without further ado, let's start talking about adjectives and adverbs. Now let's start with these two examples. Our holiday was too short. The time passed very quickly. Two people were seriously injured in the accident. Here, if you notice, quickly, time passed very quickly, or two people were seriously injured. Quickly and seriously are adverbs. Now, many adverbs are adjectives plus ly. So it's quick plus ly, quickly. Serious plus ly, seriously. Like many others, of course, like careful, carefully, bad, badly, heavy, heavily, terrible, terribly. But not all words ending in ly are adverbs. Some adjectives end in ly too. For example, friendly, elderly, lonely, and lovely. For example, we say, it was a lovely day, and here, lovely is an adjective, it's not an adverb. But now, let's get down to business and compare these two together. Adjectives and adverbs. When do we use adjectives and when do we use adverbs? Since they're very close to each other, sometimes the difference is just an ly, just two letters. So when do we use this and when do we use that? When do we use an adjective? When do we use an adverb? Let's put these two examples next to each other. Sam is a careful driver. Careful, that's an adjective. Sam is a careful driver. Or Sam drove carefully along the narrow road. Now here, in the first example, it's wrong to say Sam is a carefully driver. It's wrong to use an adverb. And in the second example, it's wrong to use an adjective. We can't say Sam drove careful along the narrow road. So why is it that we use adjectives in one place and adverbs in other places? The thing is, we have to be careful about why we're using this word. What are we trying to describe? If we are describing a noun, in this case, driver, we said Sam is a careful driver. Careful is used to describe the noun, to describe the driver. Maybe somebody or something. It doesn't matter. It's not just for people. It can be for things as well. But the point is, I am describing a noun. I am telling you about this noun. I can say Sam is a driver, period. Yeah, that's good. Of course, that's a complete sentence. It is understood. It is correct. But I want to tell you more about this noun. I want to tell you more about this word that is driver, a noun. If I want to describe this noun, I have to use an adjective. We use adjectives to describe nouns. So we say Sam is a careful driver. But in the second example, I am not actually describing Sam or the driver. I said Sam drove carefully along the narrow road. So actually, I'm not telling you about Sam. I'm telling you about the verb, about how he drives, about how somebody does something, or how something happens. Because remember, it's not just for people. It can be for people or things. So if you want to describe a noun, you use an adjective. If you want to describe the way something happens or how somebody does something, like you're describing the verb, describing how this thing is happening, you use an adverb. Let me give you another example. We didn't go out because of the heavy rain. Heavy rain. Heavy is an adjective. And what am I describing here? I'm describing rain, which is something, of course, but it is a noun. I am describing a noun. I use an adjective. We didn't go out because of the heavy rain. But look at this example. We didn't go out because it was raining heavily. So I am not describing the rain anymore. Maybe the general meaning is like that, but I am telling you how it was raining. I'm describing the verb. So here I have to use an adverb. It was raining heavily. Not it was raining heavy. That would be a mistake. All right? So remember, adjectives, we use it to describe nouns, whether this noun refers to a person or a thing, but we use adverbs to describe verbs, to describe the way something happens or how somebody does something. So you can say, for example, she speaks perfect English, and perfect here is an adjective describing English, which is a noun. She speaks perfect English. But if you say she speaks English perfectly, I can't say perfect anymore because here perfectly is not describing English anymore. It is describing the way she speaks English. So the way she speaks English, that's an adverb. Now, with that being said, I have to tell you that we do use some adjectives after some verbs, especially verb to be, and also other verbs. We call them linking verbs, by the way, like look, feel, sound, seem, etc. So, for example, we say, please be quiet. Now, be is a verb, right? Quiet comes after the verb. So, it is supposed to be describing the verb. So, maybe I should use an adverb here. Yes, in general, that's the case, but not after verb to be, look, feel, or sound. If you say, please speak quietly, yeah, here we use an adverb because I use quietly after speak. Okay, but not after be. Please be quiet. We use an adjective after these verbs. Another example, my exam results were really bad. My exam results were, that's verb to be, bad. So here after verb to be, we use an adjective. But what if I say I did really badly in the exam? Here I am describing the verb do. I did really badly in the exam. So here I use an adverb. Let me give you another example with look this time. Why do you always look so serious? Look so serious. After look, we can use an adjective. Look so serious. But if I say, why do you never take me seriously? Take here, take is another verb. We use an adverb with it. The final example here, I feel happy. After feel, you use an adjective. You don't use an adverb. But if you say, for example, the children were playing and you want to describe the way they were playing here, play, you use an adverb. You say the children were playing happily. You have to remember again, adjectives we use to describe nouns, adverbs we use to describe verbs. But that's not everything about adverbs. We also use adverbs to describe adjectives or other adverbs. For example, we can say reasonably cheap or terribly sorry. Now, here, cheap is an adjective, and I'm describing how cheap it is. It's reasonably cheap. Sorry, how sorry are you? I'm terribly sorry. Terribly. Terribly here is an adverb. I'm using it to describe the adjective sorry. Or even adverbs describe other adverbs like incredibly quickly. Incredibly quickly. Quickly is an adverb on its own, but then I want to tell you how quickly it happened, and I am telling you here it happened incredibly quickly. So here we can use adverbs not only to describe verbs, we can use adverbs to describe adjectives or other adverbs. Let me give you some examples. It's a reasonably cheap restaurant and the food is extremely good. So here, reasonably cheap, extremely good. Now here, reasonably is an adverb describing cheap, which is an adjective. Extremely is an adverb describing good, which is an adjective. I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean to push you. Terribly sorry. I'm telling you how sorry I am. I'm describing the adjective sorry, so I use an adverb. Or I can say Maria learns languages incredibly quickly. I'm describing another adverb, quickly, and here I use another adverb to describe an adverb. We use adverbs to describe adverbs incredibly quickly. The exam was surprisingly easy. Easy is an adjective. I want to describe how easy it was. And here I am telling you it was surprisingly easy. Now we can also use an adverb before a past participle like injured, organized, written, etc. So we say, for example, two people were seriously injured in the accident. Not serious injured. We don't use adjectives here. Or we say the conference was badly organized. Here, badly, that's an adverb describing organized. Now, injured and organized, yes, they work like adjectives, but sometimes because you see that they are past participle, you might think that I can use an adjective. No, you can't. You use an adverb for that. And now, with that being said, let's move on and talk about some special cases. And some special cases, I mean some special adverbs here. Now, let's talk first about good and well, because this is an irregular thing. We don't just add an ly. We don't say goodly. We say well. Well is the adverb if we want to use the meaning of good. Good is the adjective. The adverb is well. Now, I say your English is good. I'm describing your English. I say your English is good. That's an adjective. Or Sophie is a good pianist. That's fine. But what if I want to use the adverb here? Do I say goodly? No. Do I use good? Of course not. I have to use an adverb. And in this case, I use well. So if I say your English is good, but I want to use it in another context, I want to say you speak English. We don't say you speak English good. We have to use an adverb. You speak English well. Sophie is a good pianist. Yes, good is okay here because it's an adjective describing pianist, which is a noun. Fine. But what if I say Sophie plays the piano? Do I still say Sophie plays the piano good? No. Sophie plays the piano well. Now, we also use well, not good, with past participle. For example, we say well known, well educated, well paid, well behaved, etc. For example, Sophie's father is a well known writer, not good known writer, well known writer. But pay attention, well can also be used as an adjective. And when it is used as an adjective, it means in good health. Like if I ask you, how are you today? And you may respond, I'm very well, thanks. Now here, I'm very, because after verb to be, we should use an adjective, right? But we are using an adjective. Well can be used as an adjective to mean in good health. I'm very well, thanks. And we use that all the time. Now let's move on to talk about some other special words where the adjective and the adverb are just the same. These are fast, hard, and late. Now these words are both adjectives and adverbs. Now, of course, you're going to tell me, how can I tell? Well, you will tell from the context. There's no other way. Because there is no difference in the form of the word, whether it's an adjective or an adverb. It's just the same, fast, hard, and late, both adjectives and adverbs. Let me give you some examples. Darren is a fast runner. Fast runner. Here, fast is an adjective because I'm describing runner. But what if I say Darren can run fast? I'm describing how fast he can run, so I'm describing the verb. Fast here is an adverb, but it doesn't change. It stays the same. Fast as an adverb, fast as an adjective. What about hard? It's hard to find a job right now. It's hard. It is hard. After verb to be, that's an adjective, right? But what if I say Kate works after a verb? What do I say? Do I say hardly? No. She works hard. Hard, again, can be used as an adjective or an adverb. What about sorry, I'm late? Sorry, I'm late. That's an adjective, right? Or if I want to tell you, I got up late, I'm describing a verb here, so it is an adverb. I got up late. Late here is an adverb. But now that being said, we need to talk about lately and especially hardly, because there is a word that is called lately and hardly. We have lately and hardly, but they're different. If you use lately is different than late, than this late that we just talked about. Lately means recently. It is an adverb, obviously, but it means something else. It doesn't have the same meaning of late, the adverb late. Now, here we say, have you seen Kate lately? Recently. Okay, here we can use lately because it has a different meaning. And hardly is a big story on its own because it has many meanings. Hardly is one of the most versatile adverbs in English. It has many meanings and it can be used in different contexts. Let's talk about that. It's worth it because we use it a lot. Now let's start with the very first and most common meaning of hardly, which means very little or almost not. So that is different from hard, right? Very little, almost not. So we say, for example, Sarah wasn't very friendly at the party. She hardly spoke to me. Now that doesn't have anything to do with difficult. That's something else. She hardly spoke to me. That means she spoke to me very little. Or we've only met once or twice. We hardly know each other. We almost don't know each other. That's what I'm trying to say. We hardly know each other. That's the meaning of hardly. And if the meaning is like that, we don't use hard. We don't say we hard know each other. What does that mean? Or she hard spoke to me. No, she hardly spoke to me, or we hardly know each other. Now, let's take a look at hard and hardly in those two examples. He tried hard to find a job, but he had no luck. He tried a lot, that's the meaning of hard, with a lot of effort. That's the meaning he tried hard. He tried a lot with a lot of effort. But if I say, I'm not surprised he didn't find a job, he hardly tried. There's a big difference between hardly and hard. It's just the opposite. He hardly tried. That means he tried very little or he almost never tried. So that is so different. If you say he tried hard, that's a good thing. If you say he hardly tried, that's not a very good thing in this context, obviously. And you need to notice that hardly goes before the verb. We say we hardly know each other, not we know each other hardly, okay? We use hard after the verb, that's fine, but hardly comes before the verb. You need to remember that. But that's not everything about hardly. We can say I can hardly do something. That means it's very difficult for me, almost impossible. For example, you can say your writing is terrible. I can hardly read it. It's almost impossible to read. Or my leg was hurting. I could hardly walk. It was very difficult for me to walk. we can use can, obviously can or could, with hardly, and you can use it in this expression, I can hardly do something. I can hardly read your writing. I could hardly walk. That's another one. We can also use hardly with any, anybody, anyone, anything, or anywhere. For example, we say, how much money do you have? And you may say hardly any. That means very little or almost none. Or these two cameras are very similar. There's hardly any difference between them. There's hardly any. We use any here a lot. Any or anybody or any of these words that start with any. Now, another example, the exam results were bad. Hardly anybody in our class passed. What does that mean? Hardly anybody in our class passed. That means very few students passed. Or we can say she was very quiet. She hardly said anything. So that was about hardly with any or anybody, anyone, anything, anywhere. We can also use hardly with ever. We say hardly ever means almost never. For example, you say, I'm nearly always at home in the evenings. I hardly ever go out. That means I almost never. Not never, I hardly ever, it's almost never. Or we can use hardly to mean certainly not. For example, we say, it's hardly surprising that you're tired. You haven't slept for 3 days. It's hardly surprising that you're tired. What am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say that it's certainly not surprising because you haven't slept for 3 days. It's hardly surprising that you're tired. I'm not surprised at all. It's not surprising at all. It's hardly surprising. Or we can say the situation is serious, but it's hardly a crisis. It's certainly not a crisis. So hardly can also mean certainly not. So that's everything I wanted to share with you about adverbs and adjectives. I hope you found the information useful. I hope you can differentiate now between your adjectives and adverbs, where to use your adjectives, where to use your adverbs in the correct place. And with that being said, let me remind you that you can find the transcript of this episode on our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. There's a link in the description of this episode. Just click details or show notes or description, and you will find the link that will take you to the custom post we created for this episode. You will find the transcript of this episode, and you will find a lot of other useful things on our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. So if you would like to go there, just take the link, go there, and take your English with it to the next level. There's also another link to our Patreon page if you would like to support English Plus to help us continue creating the content we're creating. Just go to our Patreon page and support us by becoming a patron of English Plus, and we will be forever grateful for you, but you will also get our premium series and premium mini courses that are coming out on a regular basis. Our first was Business English Marketing. Now, coming very soon, we have Learn the English Tenses mini-series, and we have 100 events that change the world. So with that being said, this is your host, Danny. I would like to thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. I will see you next time.